Welcome to our channel. An unforgettable story awaits you. Enjoy watching. The old barn stood weathered and worn, a silent sentinel of memories past. Mia hesitated at the entrance, her fingers trembling as she reached for the rusty padlock. With a click, the lock gave way, and Mia pushed open the creaking door, revealing a dusty interior untouched for years. Sunlight filtered through the cracks in the walls, casting long shadows across the cluttered space. Mia's heart raced as she took in the sight before her, a jumble of forgotten belongings strewn about haphazardly, like relics of a bygone era. Taking a deep breath, Mia stepped into the barn, the scent of must and decay filling her nostrils. She moved cautiously through the maze of forgotten treasures, her eyes scanning the dimly lit interior for any sign of what she sought. As she sifted through the debris, Mia's fingers brushed against something cold and metallic, a worn leather-bound journal tucked away in a corner. With trembling hands, she retrieved the journal, blowing off a thick layer of dust before flipping through its pages. The words on the yellowed pages blurred before her eyes as Mia began to read James's handwritten entries. Her heart sank with each revelation, the weight of James's secrets bearing down on her like a leaden burden. "I never knew he kept a journal," Mia whispered to herself, her voice barely audible above the sound of her own heartbeat. "Is everything okay, Mia?" Ethan's voice broke through the silence, his concerned eyes meeting hers as he stepped into the barn. Mia glanced up, startled by his sudden appearance. I found something," she murmured, holding up the journal for him to see. James's diary. Ethan's brow furrowed in concern as he approached her, his gaze flickering over the worn pages. "What does it say?" he asked softly. Mia swallowed hard, her throat tight with emotion. It's about Abigail," she confessed, her voice barely above a whisper. "James had a past with her, a son named Jacob." Mia sat cross-legged on the dusty floor of the barn, the old journal cradled in her hands like a fragile treasure. With each turn of the page, she delved deeper into James's past, her heart heavy with the weight of his secrets. The sun had dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the barn as Mia read on, oblivious to the passage of time. The words on the pages blurred before her eyes, a jumble of emotions swirling within her, betrayal, anger, and sorrow mingled with a newfound curiosity. As Mia reached a particularly poignant entry, a soft gasp escaped her lips, and she clutched the journal tighter to her chest. The truth laid bare before her. A woman named Abigail, a love affair shrouded in secrecy, and a son named Jacob, hidden from the world. "Mia?" The sound of Ethan's voice broke through her reverie, his concerned eyes meeting hers as he approached her in the dim light of the barn. Mia looked up, her expression haunted as she held out the journal for him to see. "It's James's diary," she whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. He had another life, a life he never told me about." Ethan knelt beside her, his gaze scanning the pages of the journal with furrowed brows. "Abigail," he murmured, his voice heavy with understanding. "I've heard James mention her before, but I never knew." Mia nodded, tears brimming in her eyes as she traced the faded words on the page. "He loved her," she whispered, her voice barely above a whisper. "And he had a son with her, a son named Jacob." Ethan reached out, his hand gentle as he squeezed hers in silent support. "I'm sorry, Mia," he said softly, his eyes filled with empathy. "This must be incredibly difficult for you." Mia nodded, her throat tight with emotion as she clutched the journal to her chest. "I don't know what to do," she confessed, her voice trembling. "How am I supposed to face this alone?" Mia sat alone in the dimly lit barn, the weight of James's secrets heavy on her shoulders. The revelations from his diary had left her reeling, grappling with a whirlwind of emotions as she tried to make sense of it all. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the cluttered space, Mia knew she couldn't hide from the truth any longer. With a heavy sigh, she rose to her feet, the journal clutched tightly in her hands. "I need to confront this," she muttered to herself, her voice echoing in the quiet of the barn. With determination in her heart, Mia made her way back to the house, her mind racing with thoughts of what lay ahead. She knew she couldn't ignore James's past any longer. It was time to face reality head-on. As she stepped through the front door, Mia's gaze fell upon the photograph of James that adorned the mantel. His smile seemed to mock her, a silent reminder of the secrets he had kept hidden from her for so long. Taking a deep breath, Mia squared her shoulders and made her way to the living room, where Abigail awaited. The tension in the air was palpable as the two women regarded each other, their eyes filled with a mix of apprehension and curiosity. "Abigail," Mia began, her voice steady despite the tumult of emotions swirling within her. "We need to talk." Abigail nodded, her expression guarded as she met Mia's gaze. "I know," she replied softly, her voice tinged with regret. "I never meant for any of this to happen." Mia's heart ached at the pain in Abigail's eyes, knowing that they both bore the scars of James's betrayal. Despite the anger and resentment she felt towards Abigail, Mia couldn't deny the shared bond they now held, a bond forged by the secrets they both carried. "We need to put aside our differences for Jacob's sake," Mia said, her voice firm as she met Abigail's gaze. "He deserves to know the truth about his father." Abigail nodded, a flicker of gratitude crossing her features. "You're right," she admitted, her voice tinged with relief. "Jacob is the most important thing now." With a shared understanding, Mia and Abigail made a silent pact to face the reality of James's past together, knowing that their journey was just beginning. As they exchanged a tentative smile, Mia felt a glimmer of hope amidst the darkness, a hope that they could find healing and redemption in the days to come. Mia sat at the kitchen table, her mind a whirlwind of thoughts as she sifted through the revelations of James's past. Across from her, Abigail sat in silence, the weight of their shared burden heavy in the air. After a long moment, Mia broke the silence, her voice hesitant yet determined. "We need to do what's best for Jacob," she said, her words echoing in the quiet room. Abigail nodded, her gaze fixed on Mia's. "I agree," she replied softly, her voice tinged with uncertainty. "But I don't know where to start." Mia took a deep breath, steeling herself for the challenges that lay ahead. "We start by being honest with Jacob," she said, her voice steady despite the turmoil in her heart. "He deserves to know the truth about his father." Abigail nodded in agreement, a sense of resolution settling over her features. "You're right," she admitted, her voice filled with determination. "We owe him that much." With a shared understanding, Mia and Abigail set out to unravel the tangled web of James's past, determined to confront the truth head-on. They spent hours poring over old photographs and mementos, piecing together the fragments of James's life that had been hidden from them for so long. As they worked side by side, Mia couldn't help but feel a sense of kinship with Abigail, despite the years of bitterness and resentment between them. In their shared quest to care for Jacob, they found a common purpose, a purpose that transcended their differences and united them in their commitment to his well-being. "We can do this," Mia said, her voice filled with conviction as she met Abigail's gaze. "Together." Abigail smiled, a flicker of gratitude crossing her features. "Thank you, Mia," she said softly, her voice tinged with emotion. "For everything." With a renewed sense of purpose, Mia and Abigail embraced their roles as guardians to Jacob, knowing that their journey would be fraught with challenges and obstacles. But as they looked to the future, they found solace in the knowledge that they were not alone, that together they could weather any storm that came their way. Days turned into weeks, and Mia found herself immersed in the daunting reality of single parenthood. With James's secrets weighing heavily on her heart and the financial strain of caring for Jacob looming large, Mia felt as though she were drowning in a sea of uncertainty. As she sat at the kitchen table, poring over bills and paperwork late into the night, Mia couldn't shake the feeling of isolation that threatened to consume her. Despite her best efforts to stay afloat, the weight of responsibility pressed down on her like a leaden weight. With a heavy sigh, Mia pushed aside the stack of unpaid bills, her thoughts consumed by worry and fear. How would she ever manage to provide for Jacob on her own? And what would become of them if she couldn't? "Mia?" Ethan's voice broke through the silence, his concerned eyes meeting hers as he stepped into the room. Mia forced a smile, though it felt more like a grimace. "Hey, Ethan," she said, her voice strained with exhaustion. "What brings you here?" Ethan hesitated, his brow furrowed in concern. "I wanted to check in on you," he admitted, his voice soft with empathy. "You seem overwhelmed." Mia nodded, her throat tight with emotion. "I am," she confessed, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know how to do this on my own." Ethan reached out, his hand gentle as he squeezed hers in silent support. "You don't have to," he said softly, his eyes filled with understanding. "We're here for you, Mia. You're not alone." Tears pricked Mia's eyes at his words, a mixture of relief and gratitude washing over her like a wave. For so long, she had felt as though she were carrying the weight of the world on her shoulders, but now, in Ethan's presence, she felt a glimmer of hope amidst the darkness. "Thank you, Ethan," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. "I don't know what I'd do without you." Ethan smiled, a flicker of warmth crossing his features. "You don't have to figure it out alone," he said gently. "We're in this together, Mia. Always." With Ethan's unwavering support and the knowledge that she wasn't alone in her struggles, Mia found a renewed sense of strength and resilience. Though the road ahead would be difficult, she knew that as long as she had Ethan by her side, she could weather any storm that came her way. As Mia's struggles intensified, the tight-knit community rallied around her, offering a lifeline of support in her darkest hour. From neighbors to acquaintances, each member of the village came together to ease Mia's burden and provide a beacon of hope in her time of need. One afternoon, Mia found herself overwhelmed by the mounting medical bills and the daunting prospect of Jacob's upcoming surgery. With a heavy heart, she made her way to the local market, unsure of how she would afford the necessary treatment. As she browsed the stalls, lost in thought, Mia felt a gentle hand on her shoulder. She turned to find Mrs. Thompson, a kindly elderly woman from the village, smiling warmly at her. "Hello, Mia dear," Mrs. Thompson said, her voice soft with compassion. "How are you holding up?" Mia forced a smile, though it felt strained. "I'm struggling," she admitted, her voice tinged with emotion. "The bills are piling up, and I don't know how I'll manage." Mrs. Thompson nodded, her eyes filled with empathy. "I understand, dear," she said softly. "But you're not alone. We're here to help." With a sense of gratitude swelling in her chest, Mia watched as Mrs. Thompson disappeared into the crowd, only to return moments later with a small group of villagers in tow. "We heard you could use a hand, Mia," Mr. Johnson, the local grocer, said, his voice filled with determination. "We've set up a fundraiser to help cover Jacob's medical expenses." Tears pricked Mia's eyes at the outpouring of generosity from her neighbors, their kindness a stark reminder of the strength of community in times of adversity. "I don't know what to say," Mia whispered, her voice choked with emotion. "You don't have to say anything, Mia," Mrs. Thompson said, her voice gentle yet firm. "Just know that we're here for you, every step of the way." With the support of her community behind her, Mia felt a renewed sense of hope and determination. Though the road ahead would be difficult, she knew that as long as she had the unwavering support of her neighbors, she could face whatever challenges came her way with courage and resilience. With the weight of her community's support bolstering her spirits, Mia felt a glimmer of hope amidst the darkness that had clouded her world. As she navigated the maze of medical appointments and financial worries, she found solace in the knowledge that she was not alone. One afternoon, as Mia sat in the waiting room of the hospital, her thoughts consumed by Jacob's upcoming surgery, she felt a gentle hand on her shoulder. Startled, she looked up to find Ethan standing beside her, his expression filled with concern. "Mia," Ethan said softly, his voice a soothing balm to her troubled mind. "How are you holding up?" Mia forced a smile, though it felt weak. "I'm nervous," she admitted, her voice tinged with anxiety. "I just want Jacob to be okay." Ethan nodded, his eyes filled with empathy. "I understand," he said gently, "but you're doing everything you can for him. That's all anyone can ask." As they sat in companionable silence, Mia felt a sense of gratitude wash over her like a wave. Ethan's presence was a constant source of strength and support, a beacon of hope in her darkest hour. Suddenly, The sound of footsteps approaching caught Mia's attention, and she looked up to find Dr. Patel, Jacob's surgeon, standing before her with a reassuring smile. "Mia," Dr. Patel said, his voice warm and reassuring. "I wanted to talk to you about Jacob's surgery." Mia's heart skipped a beat at the mention of her son's name, her anxiety threatening to overwhelm her. "Is everything okay?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. Dr. Patel nodded, his expression filled with confidence. "Yes, everything looks good," he replied reassuringly. "Jacob's surgery is scheduled for tomorrow morning, and I'm confident that it will go smoothly." Tears of relief welled in Mia's eyes at the news, her heart swelling with gratitude. "Thank you, Dr. Patel," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. Dr. Patel smiled, a glimmer of warmth in his eyes. "You're welcome, Mia," he said kindly. "We'll take good care of Jacob, I promise." As Mia watched Dr. Patel walk away, a sense of peace settled over her like a comforting blanket. Though the road ahead would be challenging, she knew that with Ethan by her side and the skilled hands of Dr. Patel guiding Jacob's care, they would emerge stronger than ever before. In the wake of Jacob's successful surgery, Mia found herself grappling with a newfound sense of purpose and determination. With the support of her community and the knowledge that Jacob was on the road to recovery, she felt a renewed sense of hope for the future. One afternoon, as Mia sat in the garden with Jacob playing nearby, she found herself lost in thought, reflecting on the journey that had brought them to this moment. Despite the challenges and hardships they had faced, Mia couldn't help but feel a sense of gratitude for the second chance they had been given. As she watched Jacob chase after a butterfly, his laughter ringing out like music to her ears, Mia felt a gentle hand on her shoulder. Startled, she looked up to find Ethan standing beside her, his expression soft with concern. "Mia," Ethan said softly, his voice filled with warmth. "How are you feeling?" Mia smiled, a flicker of contentment crossing her features. "I'm happy," she admitted, her voice tinged with emotion. "I never thought we'd make it through all of this, but here we are." Ethan nodded, his eyes filled with admiration. "You've been through so much, Mia," he said gently, "but you've come out stronger on the other side. That's something to be proud of." As they sat together in the quiet of the garden, Mia felt a sense of peace settle over her like a warm embrace. With Ethan's unwavering support and Jacob's laughter echoing in the air, she knew that she had finally found redemption, a chance to build a brighter future for herself and her son. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps approaching caught Mia's attention, and she looked up to find Mrs. Thompson standing before her, a small gift in her outstretched hand. "Mia," Mrs. Thompson said kindly, her eyes twinkling with warmth, "I wanted to give you something to commemorate Jacob's recovery." Tears pricked Mia's eyes at the gesture of kindness, her heart overflowing with gratitude. "Thank you, Mrs. Thompson," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. Mrs. Thompson smiled, a knowing glint in her eyes. "You're welcome, Mia," she said softly. "You've been through a lot, but you've never lost sight of what's truly important. That's what matters most." As Mia watched Mrs. Thompson walk away, a sense of peace settled over her like a comforting blanket. Though the road ahead would undoubtedly be filled with challenges, she knew that with Ethan's support and the love of her community, she could face whatever came her way with courage and resilience. With Jacob's recovery and Mia's newfound sense of strength, a feeling of optimism permeated the air, signaling the dawn of a new chapter in their lives. As they embraced the promise of a fresh start, Mia felt a sense of gratitude for the journey that had brought them to this moment. One sunny morning, Mia stood at the threshold of their home, a sense of anticipation coursing through her veins. With Jacob by her side, she felt ready to embark on the next phase of their journey, leaving behind the trials and tribulations of the past. As she looked out at the world stretching before them, Mia felt a sense of possibility shimmering in the air like sunlight dancing on water. With Ethan's unwavering support and the love of her community, she knew that anything was possible. "Mia," Ethan's voice broke through her reverie, his expression soft with warmth as he stepped up beside her. Mia turned to face him, a smile lighting up her features. "Hey, Ethan," she said, her voice filled with excitement. "Are you ready for this?" Ethan nodded, his eyes sparkling with anticipation. "I am," he replied, his voice brimming with enthusiasm. "I can't wait to see what the future holds for you and Jacob." As they exchanged a meaningful glance, Mia felt a surge of gratitude for Ethan's unwavering support. With him by her side, she knew that she could face whatever challenges came her way with courage and resilience. Suddenly, the sound of Jacob's laughter filled the air, pulling Mia out of her thoughts. She looked down to find her son running towards her, his face flushed with excitement. "Mommy, look," Jacob exclaimed, his eyes shining with delight as he held up a handful of wildflowers. Mia's heart swelled with love as she knelt down to gather Jacob in her arms, the warmth of his embrace filling her with a sense of joy she had never known before. Together, hand in hand, Mia, Ethan, and Jacob stepped out into the world, ready to embrace the promise of a new beginning. With hope in their hearts and a sense of determination in their souls, they knew that whatever lay ahead, they would face it together as a family. I hope you enjoyed it. Subscribe so you don't miss the new videos.